Hi everyone, today I'll be teaching you how to draw both curly/wavy hair as well as straight hair. So first I'm just going to start off by beginning with the general contour outline shape of the hair and finding the smaller shapes of the different waves and curls that we see and mapping those out before I go in with my value. So now I'm just beginning to lay in the value towards the center where the part is. So we see some darker values up at the top, and then it starts to fade into a lighter value as we go down the side of the hair. And then we flip-flop between lights and darks as we see highlights and shadows. Now I'm just starting to pull in a few hairs. So notice how I am doing quick, long strokes. You want to do that in order to create the illusion of hair. It starts to go downward, and all of the lines just continue to connect. So you'll continue to do long, thin strokes, and then they'll connect as you move downward. So now I'm just focusing on the shapes of the shadows I see up at the top. I'm trying to recreate those shapes of shadows to lay in my darker areas towards the part. Then I'm going to come around and add some shadows towards the front and in the center. Now I'm beginning to pull in that first dark shadow that we see. So if we're starting from the top of the head, we see there's dark shadow towards the part, then the hair gets lighter as the light falls on it, and then we go back into that darker shadow. So I'm working on that second darker shadow now and really blocking that in. So now I'm starting on that first curl, so it's kind of this elongated rhombus shape, if you will, in order to create waves or curls. So what you'll want to do is you'll start off dark at both of the ends, because as the curl wraps around, it gets darker on the ends, and it's lighter where the hair is protruding and most towards the light. So the center is a lot lighter, and then again where the curl is curling around back, it becomes darker. Once I block that in, I'll start to kind of smooth over the transition between the darker and lighter areas by lightly shading. Then I'll come in with my eraser and pull out some highlights. You can go back and forth between your eraser and your pencil to draw in some individual hairs to get a little bit more detailed. If you don't have a small eraser, you can always use your big eraser and just use the edge to pull away some of those highlights. So now that you've seen what the curly and wavy side looks like and how to recreate that texture, I'm going to show you how to draw straight hair on the other side. So same thing, we'll start off at the top and in the center and work our way out from the part. So same as on the other side, and my hand is kind of blocking it on the iPad picture, but the top of the hair towards the part is really dark, and then as we move downward it starts to get a little bit lighter and then darker once more. Now I'm just finding the outer edge or contour line of the hair and lightly mapping that in before I start to go into the shadows and highlights on the rest of the hair. So similar to the other side, I'm trying to create long wispy strokes while also laying in some value. So I'm doing some hatch marks but also some long strokes over top to create the illusion of hair. Especially for straight hair, you really want to have long, swift movements in order to create the look of long, straight hair. So now I'll go in real quick with a blender stick. Just kind of blend in some of my values because I saw a lot of white spaces. You don't want that, so I'm using the blender stick to blend out those values, and I'll go back in to recreate the details of the hair. So right now I'm looking at the edge of the shadow and where the light meets the shadow on the hair. As you can see, there's a highlighted section to the right of the model's eye, and then as we get a little farther down, it gets darker again. So I'm just finding that transition and recreating that into my drawing. Going back and forth with my pencil here and my eraser to pull out some highlights and then draw in some darker areas. Once I get towards the end of the hair doesn't stop abruptly and look like fringe. It falls into groups. So you'll want to recreate that by allowing your hair to fall into a few different groups and end more subtly rather than an abrupt end to your hair. So what I mean by that is letting it kind of taper off into these smaller groups like I'm creating. The same as before, I'll go back in and smooth over my hair just so I can't see my hatch marks as much. And then I'm coming in and just pulling out some of the wispy flyaway hairs. This is a really important step, especially with straight hair, because you don't want it to look like you have a helmet head where all of your hair is just kind of glued to your head. You want to add a few stray baby hairs or wispy hairs in order to give it more of that realistic and dimensional look. Finally, just pulling out a few more highlights to show some individual hairs. And there you have it. Thanks for watching.